promoting scholarship and also research and also impact, which is the other thing we should be talking about nowadays. We shouldn't just be talking about doing research. We should be talking about doing research that is impactful, research that is making a change and speaking to the issues, the day-to-day issues that are affecting communities and livelihoods. And so this is where the fascination is for me, to say, how do we do this? But also, how do we do this in a collaborative manner that is mutually beneficial to all stakeholders and parties involved, but also considerate also of the dynamics that are at play between the different personalities that we may have as members of research teams. I will make this presentation available to anybody who would want it, so please don't worry if I go a little bit fast. I mean, this is one of the first invitations I've ever received to talk about, to talk on, and then I'm told I have strictly 30 minutes to say my story and end. So let me get straight into it and tell you the 7 things I wish I knew. And the 7 is really a way of just organizing my collections and my thought processes into different, thoughts that we can share together in terms of how we can make our work better. First thing I will emphasize upon is collaborations actually work. And over the years, as a person who started in my career, I have started predominantly working alone because I was afraid of exposing how much I don't know to other people. And so I fumbled and I made mistakes along. And then with confidence, I started gathering up confidence and also learning from others around me and also reaching out to people. So one of the first things we just must emphasize is there are stories out there, anecdotal evidence even, of people who will tell you of how collaborations have assisted them in moving from one point to the other in whatever sphere of the academic realm that they were targeting it. The concern, though, which we must also be honest about, is that more and more emphasis is now being placed on collaboration. Actually, collaborations are becoming a measure or an indicator of collegiality, or your ability to not only deal with your content-specific issues, but also your ability to be able to work with others in dealing with these content-specific issues. So we know you can make a contribution through your work that you're doing. You've come up with this brilliant framework that is being used by practitioners and even those within the field. But what we don't know is your ability to work with other people in achieving those collaborations. And so in some areas and in some grant applications, I notice they strictly emphasize that the principal investigator must be part of a collaborative team. I will give you an example of a grant we received from the CSIR here in South Africa, where they emphasize that there must be some form of a collaboration that is happening with other players. And so collegiality is kind of linked to this aspect of collaboration as a process and a part of research. The second point we can emphasize upon is that collaborations also become an indicator of workload.
Oh, sorry.
Collaborations become an indicator of workload management, that they reveal to us sometimes your ability to work in a team to be able to manage tasks. I mean, the saying goes, you can never eat an elephant whole. You need to eat it in chunks. And for me, that speaks to saying you may need to collaborate to be able to achieve certain objectives that you want to achieve, depending on the scale of the work that you must do. Collaboration are also an outlet of seeking for funding. More and more funders as I emphasized, are calling for people to show evidence of a collaborative research team to be able to achieve whatever objectives that are set before them. So collaborations actually work. And then I'm going to somewhat appear to contradict myself and also say collaborations need work. And so there's a difference between the two. Collaborations actually work and collaborations need work. So the measure of how successful collaborations are all dependent on each and every member of that collaborative team to pull together to be able to make the collaboration work. So from moving from collaborations actually work, I think it must be mentioned that collaborations themselves are a form of work. They are a form of work that is outside the task because they are issues related to preparing the team in the task before them. And that's a lot of work that needs to be done because some projects die before they even start because of challenges around issues related to managing those aspects of people issues and also task issues. So collaborations need work. Collaborations are taxing for the individual. I have been involved in a number of collaborations, and I'm glad to see some of the partners I've collaborated with are here. And one of my strongest aspects is to be able to bring people together and also just unite people around a common goal. But one of my challenges that I suffer from is keeping interest in that process of bringing people together. So I often think that this is a task that somebody else may need to take part in as part of the team to say, okay, he has brought us together on this task. The other motivational issues about making the team work, we all must play a part. And that's also something I'm trying to work on, I guess. So collaboration can also be taxing not only for the individual, but for the other members of the group, because there is a heightened sense of expectation. What is it that I can expect from this collaboration? What is it that I can expect from the other party? And there's also a fear of exposure. What if I expose how much I don't know? So what should I do? And I'm going to introduce you to some characters that form collaborative teams, at least in the experiences that I've had. You actually see that it is also taxing not only physically, but also mentally to the people who are part of the team. So this calls for the necessity for some norms. I sound like a sociologist when I start talking about norms, but some norms need to be fixed and some norms need to be malleable. So fixed norms are norms that we all agree on what are the rules of the collaboration, what makes this collaboration strong and what makes this collaboration stand out. However, there are also other malleable norms. Other malleable norms are consideration and understanding for contextual factors. Take, for instance, a colleague of mine and I, who's based at the University of the Western Cape. We are currently applying for a grant with another partner who's in Switzerland. So some of the things that we learn as part of the collaboration are being patient with each other because of differences in time zones, because of differences even in uh, biographical characteristics that we each bring, which are just imposed on us that we have no choice on. But what we have choice on are those things that concern the work ethics. What goes on into the collaboration? How are we supposed to engage amongst each other? So as we seek to form collaborations, norms become important. Some norms are fixed, some norms are malleable, they are prone to move, but agree so much on those that are fixed because they are the glue that hold the team together. So the fact that somebody in a presentation prefers a, a, a different font to Calibri instead of Times New Roman. Those are little malleable things, but they are things that we cannot negotiate outside, and these are things that are fixed that we must also keep and preserve because they form the collaboration and keep it going. I want to introduce you and say to you that collaborations are also about power. They are also about politics. They are also about dynamics that uh, uh, are inherent in group structures that we belong to. There are different types of people that form a collaborative team. Sometimes, if I think of the collaborations that I'm in, I can see some of my friends who are part of this. But there are also there there are also other things that are interesting, at least to me. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that even if you're working just the two of you, all of you will go through some of these different types of personalities, even in a dual collaboration, just the two of you. So watch out for these dynamics. There is the comedian who is part of the team. Now, their role is not necessarily to be part of the collaboration to be a comedian, but they are there to also uh, help members of the team to see the lighter side of things. It can't be a team of people who just want to see uh, work done all the way. There must be moments where people can laugh and have fun. So last week we were having a meeting with a collaborative team that we have here in South Africa, and one of our colleagues came to the meeting, a virtual meeting, wearing a mask, and we all started laughing to say, why are you wearing a mask? They said, no, we have been told to practice, safe practices because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And what we found that all of us burst into laughter and all of that. And what that member of the team simply did was to also show us that there's also another side to this team, which is not just the attainment of the task before us, but the other side is really we laugh things off, and we also have moments where we just have fun as academics without necessarily running away from the task. The second type of person that can form a collaboration is the experienced cadre of the team. Now, for me, that's quite interesting because all teams will have people that have more experience than others. Now, in fact, let's discuss this one in view of the third one, which is the rookie, somebody who is still new to research, who is still trying to say, I want to be part of this team. I'm not sure where I will or where I'll contribute, but I'm going to be part of the team. Now, the dynamic here between the two is a power dynamic. There's the dynamic of knowledge, of how much one knows and how much one does not know. So the interesting thing that can happen here is when the one who knows can try to silence the others who don't know by saying, well, I am speaking from experience. And that becomes set in stone, and nobody can challenge that person because they're experienced. I mean, I could never have picked a better character to describe this than Morgan Freeman, because out of all the actors that you see, they probably one of the most celebrated and experienced and older in age. But the experienced cadre of the team serves a purpose. And their purpose is also for us to learn from their experience. But we should not be held victims of progress because of the experience of this person. This person should not direct us on a certain path using this idea that all of you must listen to me because I'm experienced. So be careful of that type of power dynamic and politicking that happens in collaborative teams. The other thing we can talk about is the rookie in the team. Now, one of the things I'm interested in my part of the career, that the stage that I'm on right now, is also seeing young and emerging researchers being part of big teams and collaborative teams and learning from the teams that they belong to. So the rookie sometimes confines themselves to the corner of the room. They, not all of them, but some, they also are sometimes scared to be part of the conversations because they are not experienced enough. So they rely on more of, we'll see what the other guys think. I mean, this then brings us to a very interesting sociology 101 concept we teach students, which is the idea of groupthink. The idea that it is so easy for one member of the group to dominate and drive people through to drink Kool-Aid, basically, which is laced in poison, just because they are using that power dynamic that they have. So the rookie may also need to learn to be proactive, may also need to learn from the process, but also have a voice to the process. And that can only happen with experience. I've seen some people who have started, I've started as a rookie in some of these projects that I've been part of, and to now being the project leader of a team. And there's a lot of learning that's there. But one of the things you'll also notice as a distinction between the experienced cadre and the rookie is that the rookie probably needs this collaboration to aid them in becoming a better researcher, for promotion, for tenure. Oh, you can name all sorts of reasons that they want this collaboration to work. And as a result, they are more prone to being exploited because of the position that they are in their career. So it is easy to throw work. We need somebody to do the literature review. Go and do it because you're the least experienced. We need somebody to do the dirty work, if you like. Go and do it because you're the least experienced. And one of the things that collaborative teams must talk about as they start the work they do is to address this power dynamic. We may have one person who is a leader, but it must also be emphasized that each and every person of the team has equal responsibility and an equal status in terms of the team. And then we also go to the next one, who I've called the culminator. And culminator in this team is the type of person who maintains the sobriety and the dignity of human social interaction, of making sure that we don't run and drive each other mad, making sure that if somebody is hurt because of some words that may have been said by somebody, the culminator is there to say, listen, I noticed you are not happy about A, B, and C, but look, we can work through this. And the culminator's role is not to sow division amongst members of the team, but rather to find a way and a channel of outlet of expression of saying, listen, we are a team. Let's remember that we're a team. We must be working together. And it becomes problematic if the culminator decides to then start taking sides to say, you know, I've picked up that Dr. Chakavarasha doesn't like you. And I think what he said in the team meeting is indicative of that. And already there are soaring divisions and contentions amongst people within that particular team. So those are the different personalities that exist. And these personalities can also exist in one person. All of us have to occupy those types of roles where we are not too serious, also have a light moment, where we can use our experience as a way of guiding others, where we sometimes must put ourselves in the position of a rookie and say, I don't know. I need others to help me so that they show me what it is that I must do. And also where we are also in the business of building others and not hurting them as the basis of the collaboration. One of the other things that I've put as lesson number 4 that the collaborative team must be able to do is to balance between getting the job done and understanding others. Ladies and gentlemen, collaborations offer us an opportunity to contribute, as we would say in academia, but they also offer us an opportunity to understand other people. They also offer us an opportunity. This morning, I had a meeting with one of my colleagues and friend who we collaborate with, who's based at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. We were celebrating because we just had an article on the informal sector development and the capabilities to be produced there, published in two newspapers in the Eastern Cape where we are. And we were so happy, and we would actually just stop to say, let's celebrate this newspaper article contribution that we've had. It wasn't just about logging in and we say, okay, what's on the agenda? We ask each other, how is family? And I remember my colleague very well, because all throughout, she always is concerned, how are the kids? How is life? And I equally do the same to remind her also, how are you? How are things? And it helps also to say, we want to get the job done, but we also need to understand each other. And the understanding others part becomes critical here, because if I know that TD is going to miss an appointment, because I know the background information about what is happening in her life, I can equally then put together and say, I understand she has to drop off kids, so she's missed this appointment. Or if she understands that I'm struggling with meeting a deadline and I explain to her, she also understands. So there is necessity to balance between getting the job done and also understanding others. Number 5, collaborative teams need to be realistic. We are not asking you to come up with something that will be earth-shattering, but we are asking you to come up with something that will make a contribution to your field and your particular area that you're looking at. And as a result, manage the expectations that are there. If you manage and you know the different expectations that are there, you are able then to at least understand the amount of energy and intensity that must be placed into the work that must be done. It also helps you to be able to say, this deadline, is this deadline realistic, or is this deadline just pie in the sky? And part and parcel of the challenge that may happen with those expectations is that people like to set deadlines without understanding that different members of a team have different stages at which they are in their careers. And because this happens, one of the things that we must do is to make sure that we understand each other, our needs and our expectations and where we are. And we then use that information to be able to set deadlines that are also cognizant of the different types of expectations that we have, and also the stages that we are in our careers. So managing the strengths of others is also an issue, but be careful not to be jealous. You can have one member of a team who is so brilliant, outstanding. Affirm that brilliance and that talent that is there, but also be careful of the other part. You can also have a member of the team who may be weak. Don't give up too quickly on them. Try and use every means that you can to be able to assist that person to be able to also link up to the level that they're supposed to be at. We're almost at the end. Number 6, manage yourself before seeking to manage others. Now, this is very, very painful, but it's a reality that we must talk about. A challenge that often happens in the circles that we are in. We are very good at trying to manage others, but we are not so good at managing ourselves. In the first year as an undergraduate student, my sociology professor introduced us to the work of Charles Horton Cooley, who had this concept called the looking glass self. And Cooley talks about the necessity to have a looking glass that is projected towards yourself as a person and as an individual. So before you project weaknesses of the team to others, before you project and blame others, ask yourself, as a member of the team, how do I fare in terms of how I am appearing to others? What must others think of me? and how do I revise, or how do I think about how others think about me in view of the team that I'm in. And the essence, the point of contention for me is that only when you are able to manage yourself would you be able to actually be part of a team where you can actually offer useful, constructive critique to others so that they also manage the process of being part of that team. And this is a difficult one, I guess, for all of us, and me included, if I put my expectations of how things should be done on other members of the team, and then others don't agree on that, my framing could be, oh, they're just lazy. I would have finished this paper in a week or two. They just want 2 months to be able to, well, 2 months, I could have written 4 papers in 2 months. So those are just aspects of critique and self-reflection that must happen. And then finally, there's also the question, we've published, we've won that, we've used the money for the grant, we've done all that we have. Shall we do it again? And sometimes the idea of doing it again is coming from people who probably are saying, look, this has worked for me being part of this team. And if we do it again, I'm likely to benefit again. So let me call for this team again to do it again so that I keep on benefiting from being part of the team. It may not always work. Some people, by the time the collaboration ends, are happy that the work is done and the group can disband. I mean, that's the 101 sociology teaching of the stages of group, how groups develop: forming, storming, norming, performing, and after performing, adjourning. The group must disband. The group must find a way of saying, the task is done, we are happy, everybody has benefited, community has benefited, wow, well done everyone. Now we must disband. And as you disband, I'm making an argument here, be reflexive. Be reflexive, a term that we qualitative researchers like to work with, reflexivity, which is this call of taking a step back and seeing it from the bigger picture. What were some of the strengths of the collaboration? What were some of the weaknesses of the collaboration? How have I aided the collaboration to work? How have I not aided the collaboration? What can I do in the next collaboration that I'm going to take part in? And what can I take as lesson points to be able to be a better person for the sake of more effectual and effective collaborative arrangements? So colleagues, wish you well in the journey before you, and happy collaborations.
Thank you very much, Prof. Willie. You took exactly 30 minutes. And this is unusual, but it is very interesting in that the reason why we want to keep it short is most of us out here find data a bit expensive. So when we manage to crystallize it in this way, everyone learns in a time frame that they can afford. But ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, can we probably ask a few questions to Prof. Willie? And if anyone wants to ask a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. So who is first? And while we are trying to find out who is coming with the first question, probably let me ask Prof. Willie. When we collaborated together on the few papers we worked on, how did you find me? That's a question, sir.
You're putting me on the spot.
Was I the comedian in the group?
I think you had a good sense of humor, but what I also admired was the drive that you had because in the collaborations, at least you had one definite focus that you were working on, which is this project. I had to juggle between teaching, community engagement, and as you know, by that time I was the research niche area leader for the faculty. So I also had other things I was running around. So I think you were a bit of the comedian and the culminator.
Okay, thank you very much. And I can see Prof Abel unmuted there, and I can see Ransom D1. Do you have a question?
Okay, I can go first. Thanks very much, Professor, for the interesting discussion. What I just wanted to ask, or you could tell us, how do you get started on collaborations, especially perhaps if you are coming from a background where you feel that you don't have what it takes to win?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. I think for me the pattern of collaboration is comes across through areas of mutual interest. I saw one of my colleagues from Uganda is here, where when we went to a conference in Uganda, I noticed people who research in the same areas as I do, and then I spoke to one person, and they referred me to another person, and then we ultimately said, guys, let's come together because of these areas of common interest. And one of the things that's exciting about that collaboration is that last week we actually got our first paper accepted in a very good journal called Employee Relations because of that collaboration. So I think collaborations are united or initiated by areas of common mutual interest. That's one. Sometimes collaborations come about because of funding. So that project I was telling you about with my colleague at the University of the Western Cape, we the funder has made it clear that for such a project, they are looking for certain university categories to apply, which we fit in. But they also made it clear that we must find a partner who's in Switzerland. So what we then did with my colleague, we then started going through the people who are publishing in our area in that particular country, and we found someone. We also wrote to 3-4 other people who turned us down. But this person then said, okay, let's have a meeting. So funding also brings people together to form a research team together. And I think those two are the predominant reasons that the common areas of interest, and also it may not be necessarily funding, but it could also be a third party, a stakeholder that you may be working with who has certain requirements that must exist. And one of the requirements obviously is that there must be a team, but the other requirement could be specific to how this team should be composed. And more teams, by the way, must be seen to be demographically correct. In this, we mean we had a project where we went to a funder, and the funder was ready to give us the money to do the project. And then the funder then said, one of the things we note with concern is the absence of females on this project. We would appreciate if you could recruit more collaborations from other female colleagues. And that's one of the things now we try to do in the collaborations, to make sure that our collaborations are correct in terms of demographic composition.
Thank you. Are we answered, Prof, so that I call upon the next one? Prof Abel?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. There was Ransom, if I remember. Now I can't see him on the list anymore. Are you there, Ransom? Okay. While we are trying to find the next person who wants, oh, there's also Kudakwashe. Do you have something to say?
Okay, thank you, Doc. I've got just a minor question for you, Prof. Right, let's say from this group, there are around 10, 11, or 12 individuals that have got a specific area of interest. Is there any benchmark to say this is the maximum number that is permissible, especially for people to collaborate, or maybe you can just what you call it, you can just unite as long as you have got a certain area of interest. So is there any benchmark, especially on the maximum number of individuals that might be needed in terms of collaboration?
So thanks for that question. The saying goes, the more the merrier, but sometimes the more the merrier can also mean the more the people issues that you have to deal with. I mean, we spoke about that in the presentation. I'm not going to be prescriptive on this one to say this is the benchmark. I just think it also depends with certain stipulations that you may have. I'm sometimes not comfortable working with more than 6 people, because it just creates more people issues to deal with. But it also depends on certain stipulations. So, for instance, you can also benchmark with requirements. I know one of a journal in Brazil, a good journal within the areas we publish in, has now introduced a new rule that it will not accept papers written by more than 4 authors. So, you know, sometimes in some, especially these COVID papers, if you go to Science Direct or one of these places, you'll see some people have done COVID research, and there are about 6, 7 to 10 authors there. So it also depends with the discipline that you're working in. I think as a person who's more embedded within the social sciences, I am researching the project of social interaction in society. That's also a complex task. And I think to be also witnessing complexity in the team that I'm part of, as part of social interaction, can also be daunting. So I think it all depends with the person who's brought the team together. And sometimes you can bring people with different skill sets, I understand. But there's no prescriptive answer to that. It really depends with the composition of the team and what they want to achieve.
Thank you, Prof. We have Frank and we have that in that order. And I just want to get your point where you say that it depends. I found that those ones particularly are fond of writing even in huge. I don't know how that happens. So Frank, it's your moment of glory.
Well, thanks very much, Prof, for these 7 interesting points on collaborations. I was just wondering whether, collaborations really are the best way to go about in terms of entering into research. So that's sort of the first question here. And I think linked to that, particularly for early career researchers, is it the best way to go? And what are the differences in different disciplines, So for example, those in maybe in social sciences, or probably those in, natural sciences or physical sciences, whichever, what sort of difference would it have, on that regard?
Thanks a lot, Frank, for that question. Again, I won't try to be prescriptive, but if we go back to the slide, we spoke about the different elements that are part of the team here. One of the things that I will emphasize here is that, of course, pay attention to the discipline-specific requirements. And my experience starting off writing my first couple of articles, I started more working alone, so that I had enough confidence when I got a rejection. You cushion the blows yourself to say, oh, wow, I'm glad I'm not part of a team, so that they can, go through this. But more and more indicators of your strength and your standing as an academic are placing emphasis to see how well you work with others as part of teams. But on the converse, there's also emphasis on individual production or contribution. So here in South Africa, we have something called rating, where scholars go through a period of evaluation and assessment of the work they do. And part and parcel of the things that are needed there is a fine balance between what you do individually and what you do as part of a team. The other concern I may have is some teams may have 6 to 7 people. But when you try to look at the contribution of those 6 to 7 people, they vary. Some people have put in more effort, others have put minimal effort, but their names appear. Some people have put no effort and their names appear on the publications. So try and see what is happening in your dynamic as your discipline, but also try and see what works with you. But I'm not going to say collaborations are wrong. What I'm going to just encourage is this distinction between the first 2 points. Collaborations actually work, and number 2, collaborations need work.
And we have Brilliant. Are you ready? Oh, no, there was someone who asked the question. Was that Cuthbert? Cuthbert, was that you who had the hand up after Frank? Sorry about that.
Yes, that's me.
Brilliant. Are you next?
Yeah, it's okay. My network was kind of down. So I had a question for you, Mr. Prof Willie. Yeah. Can I ask now?
No, is that Brilliant? Brilliant is coming
after.
No,
it's Cuthbert.
Oh, Cuthbert, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I wanted to know, is there a maximum number of collaborations that one can get into? Like, is it advisable to get into like 3 or 4 collaborations at once, or I'm only supposed to focus on one collaboration and give it my all?
Thanks for the question. I think sometimes it differs with the stage at which you are in your career. So I'll give you an example. I have PhD students, and some of the funding I have requires me to integrate them in the work that I'm doing. So what I can do is invite them to be part of 1 or 2 of the projects I'm doing, but I would never expect them to be part of all the projects that I'm doing. That's one. The second point is when I started off, I would have probably in a 2-year period, 1 project, 2 projects. But I think more and more because of issues of transdisciplinarity, interdisciplinary considerations, you find yourselves being part of a number of collaborative teams. And so what usually happens for me is this. There is no point in being part of many collaborative teams and having minimal impact as an outcome. But there is emphasis in having fewer collaborative teams and impact is enhanced or heightened. So I think the question as to the number is determined by the level of contribution that you have. There's really no point in being part of many teams, and these teams are not actually producing anything.
All right. That was
Thank
Frank,
you.
was it? No, that was Cuthbert. And Ransom, did you ask? Because I can still see your hand up. Okay, let's have a lady for the first time. Tsitsi, can you unmute your microphone and speak? I can see Tsitsi's hand up and the microphone still mute, so I'm not sure whether she is still there or it's just the microphone. Yes. Hello, Tsitsi.
Okay. Hi, how are you? Okay, so my question, Prof, you mentioned that you work with some of your PhD students in some of the research work that you do. So my question was, what is your take regarding us as lecturers and collaborating with our students, maybe suppose maybe I'm supervising a dissertation or something, or just a project maybe that a student is doing. It's a collaboration that is worthwhile, especially for someone who's still trying to, get started with research collaborations. Would that be a good idea? Or would you say that maybe it's better that maybe I work with other academics before? I don't know, I think that's my question really.
Okay.
How wise is that? What's your,
Okay. Thanks a lot, Titi.
That's my question.
I think
What's your take on that?
The idea is well received, and I don't see anything wrong. Charity does begin at home in developing your own students so that their success is your success. But I think one of the things I am glad about when I did my PhD is that my supervisors allowed me the room to see what they were doing and to appreciate, and also not necessarily publish with them, but they exposed me to some of the experiences that they were going through in terms of methods. I mean, there's one supervisor who introduced me to the whole idea of narrative inquiry, and I've not published a paper with her, but by that time on narrative inquiry. But the exposure helped me to be able to produce a perfectly good piece of work that warranted a PhD. So that's one. The other dynamic that's there, though, is that PhD students, master's students, we must remember their priority is to complete that qualification that they are studying. So we don't want to burden them with some of the work that we should be doing. And I think it must also be said that some people may not have the same intentions that you do, because if they are going to sit and say, well, I've got this PhD student and I hate writing the literature review section. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump it on the PhD students to do that literature review section. And all I don't do is just work with that finished paper that they would have done. I think the idea is found in the word collaboration. It's not exploitation. It's not some form of modern day slavery where students work for their supervisors, but it's a platform through which students are given an opportunity to develop their careers while also learning from their mentors that they are working with. So I'm very guided there, and I work with fellow colleagues as co-supervisors, and I'm sometimes clear there to say, look, the first priority of the student is to get the qualification. We may give them an opportunity here and there, but let that not take away the priority that is to complete their qualification.
All right. I may add to that by saying in some universities, every PhD student must publish. And when they publish, they are supposed to be the first author and the supervisor, the second author. Almost all the time they publish. Some universities make it a must. So probably I'll add to what Prof Willie said, to say it depends also on the rules, the ground rules at the particular university. And anyone out there with a question?
Mine was not a question per se, but it was maybe just a matter of maybe asking Prof Willie to sort of touch on that, in the sense of you may find that probably some collaborations tend to work well, for example, for writing a journal paper or for a research paper, than maybe for a grant application. Could you sort of touch on that, Prof?
Yes. In fact, the grant ones die quickly, because if you don't get the funding, everybody just says, okay, well done, guys, at least we tried, and then everybody moves away. The publications ones also can die if you get a rejection, but some people are very adamant. I think, yes, the shelf life of a collaboration is dependent on the nature of the task before the team. For me, I always find that the grant ones are more driven around the seeking of the funding. I'm yet to meet somebody who, after their funding has been rejected, will say, no, let's find another funder. Usually it just dies off. But with the publications one, they are more enduring because depending on the nature of the reviews that you get, I find the publications ones last longer. And the grant ones also create some form of complexity which must be managed, clarity of roles, which institution is going to be the receiving institution of the money, transparency around how the money is going to be spent, and things like that. So I think you're on the money, that we must find ways of actually realizing that the shelf life is dependent on the nature of that activity and also the outcome that you receive as part of the process.
And Prof, I have come across people who say there is some feeding, giving and taking from each other between research and publications. And they put it this way, that when you make up a team for a grant, and it turns out you have never published together before, they may think this is just a marriage of convenience. But if there is a track record that, like you and me and Lizel, we have published a lot together, if they see some work done by the team for a while, they will get a feeling that this is a genuine marriage. Would you want to comment about that?
I'm going to wear my reviewer hat and actually say I have not experienced that. I think when we sit as reviewers for grant applications, we try to work what is before us. It's not my job to try and see how old is this marriage. What are some of the nuances that are characterizing? I think the task before me as a reviewer is the proposal that these scholars have written, and I must apply myself to that particular task. I think, and I stand to be corrected, but I think when I see the work some of my colleagues do, they don't go there with that in mind to say, let's try and ascertain, was this a sham marriage, or how genuine is this? I think we look at the proposal, and what we look at in the proposal. So if you're saying you want to understand the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on gender-based violence in the SADC region, and then we see that all the scholars are from one country in the SADC region. We then say, okay, but your study is based in the SADC region. Would it not be better if you had different scholars from different SADC countries who will serve as collaborators? And that's what a collaborator does. They are adding to the team so that the work of research happens. So those are things that we may suggest. We may not score negatively to say, no, I don't want to give them the funding, or I do not recommend the funding because they don't have someone from Angola. I can write it in my report that given the nature of the work that is being researched, I strongly recommend that they find other people. And so we are not there to judge the team as per se as to when were they constituted, what links them together. We are just there to judge the proposal in view of what each member of the team seeks to contribute towards its success.
All right. And is there anyone else? Oh, if there's no one, I don't run out of questions, by the way. I remember a situation where I wanted to collaborate with someone who was quite a top-notch researcher, and we wanted to target a powerful journal. And I had started a bit into the paper, and I showed him what I had. And he said, this is bad practice. If you want us to collaborate, you don't call me in when you have advanced this far. Maybe it was his humble way of removing me or of turning me down. But I wonder, Prof, if there is a way of sort of drawing the plan together to say, you do the introduction, you do the literature review, you do the methodology, you do this, and we all meet on the experiment, and then we come back and we do this. whatever. Do you want to comment about the approach to writing a paper in a collaborative manner, in this case, an academic paper, a journal article?
Yeah, the thing is, there will always be the one person who seeks to bring the other person to the table because they see the idea. So for instance, I'll give you an example. This collaboration that we are having with this partner in Switzerland, I read the call, and then I said, okay, I know someone in the Western Cape, and you know, let's go and look for someone in Switzerland. So that's one. There will always be an initiator. Now, what the initiator must take into cognizance is that people have different preferences as to how and when they can be brought into the project. Some people want to be brought in when there is no sentence written on the proposal, where we then agree to say, this is what we're going to do. Some people will say, okay, since you are the initiator, why don't you a synopsis of what you want to achieve, and then we panel beat that. I love working with models when I delve into quantitative research, that I draw a model and then I say, this is the model that we want to test. This is what the structural equation modeling on all the things that we're going to use. I just thought I would let you know this is the model. If everybody's happy with the model, let's now put flesh to the model. So it's more of an approach of a skeleton, where you now start putting, you put together the skeleton as the framework, and you put the flesh together. What sometimes is tricky, which I urge colleagues to safeguard and be concerned about at times, is an approach where somebody writes the entire thing and nobody gives commentary to what has been written. So it becomes an issue of, if you go here, it becomes the experience. No, not really, the experience cadre, where somebody writes, and the person who writes therefore has automatic power to the proposal, because even if they are wrong, they may choose to say, well, you don't see it that way because you didn't write the document. So I think an equal participation, where we get everybody a chance to say, look, let's all be part of the work, let's work together. And some people don't like being brought in late, and I also think that it's not nice to bring people late because you're chasing a deadline. Rather work when there's enough time to be able to incorporate everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, it seems as if we are getting less and less questions, and may I abuse my position as the chair to ask one more question and say, Prof, I've seen people who collaborate together for forever, people who are always writing together, and I've often thought of it as a way of producing more publications when they could have had published 3 publications each. They've all of a sudden published 6 papers in a year. What do you think about that approach? And I will follow up on that question.
Sometimes it may be because there's a good working relationship and an understanding between the two who are always working together. It doesn't necessarily mean that there is something wrong with that approach. It could simply mean that the two have a rapport and have a good working engagement and a relationship. I think also the call sometimes is for diversity. You can't keep on writing and publishing with the same people over and over again. There are also opportunities to work with other people. So there's nothing untoward or anything prescriptive to say don't work with the one person over and over again. But I just think that there's something also mutually beneficial in working with other people as well.
And are there any rules? I remember something along the lines of if someone has not collaborated this much, that person can only be acknowledged in the footnotes, thanks for the contribution by so and so, but not an author. At what point do you draw such lines, Prof?
Yeah, I've seen that one turn ugly, where some people have actually taken their colleagues to committees to complain about being removed from a project. Yeah, it's one of those things, and also it's a very subjective matter sometimes in terms of what is enough. I'll give you an experience that happened, and one of my colleagues, I think she's on the line, who can vouch for this, who's at Gibbs, where I'm learning how to write case studies for business case studies, and she's quite good at it. So she wrote her part, and then I attempted to write something, but my attempt was not to the standard according to the experience that she has amassed. And one of the things that we had to have there was an honest and frank discussion, a discussion that also breaks past these dynamics that are existent, that one may be a professor, the other one is a lecturer, one may be more experienced in a certain style of academic writing, the other is experienced in the other, where we even wrote, and one of the things we resolved out of that little meeting was that in future there's a problem with issues about other people's work. I think the email part, sometimes when you write an email like, what are you doing? Not to say that's what they wrote, but if I write to Dr. Sam and I say, Dr. Sam, what are you doing? In the email, it may appear a bit harsh, but sometimes if I pick the phone and then remember in those dynamics, it is comedian, Culminator, the rookie actually say, but Sam, what were you doing when you wrote that? Somewhat the blow of concern is somewhat different when there is that conversation. And that's a thing I learned, and I'm appreciative for my colleague for raising in terms of trying to improve the standard of the work.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, do we have anything else? If not, I will ask Prof to just give us his parting shot.
Well, I wish everybody all the best in their collaborations, and to also take into consideration the things that we spoke about, and to push themselves to the limit and reap the reward of hard work. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Prof. And to all my colleagues on this list, I want to say this is our very first, our inaugural webinar as Zimbabwe Conference of ICTs. We will be doing more. And you have taken the front seat of history in that you have taken part in the first. There will not be another first. This is the first. And Prof, you have been our first presenter, and there will not be another first presenter. Thanks for breaking the ice. And we will be moving on, and we'll invite you to also refer colleagues to come and talk to us. And I also extend the same hand of invitation to colleagues that I see, some of them on the list who are very experienced. Please do volunteer. Come and talk to this group. Come and let's help each other for us to learn how to do our collaborations, our research, our publications. We are concerned about how to write papers that get published in top-tier journals, how to get successfully, to become successful researchers and so forth. So mine is the honor and the privilege to say thank you. Thank you, everyone. And Prof, the meeting is in your hands. You can feel free to stop the meeting. And
Thank
may
you.
we have the copy of the research.
I'll definitely do that. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.